In this presentation, we will set up and review company preferences and company information within QuickBooks Online. Note, we are now moving to the second part of the course where we're going to start a course project, and we're going to do that with a new QuickBooks file, a fresh QuickBooks file that we're going to be populating from scratch. Up to this point in time, we've been using the free test drive file. We are now in the course going to be moving to another file, a new file, a file with nothing in it that we will practice populating. If at all possible, we would recommend you following along with that and setting up your own QuickBooks Online file with nothing in it. You can still use the QuickBooks test drive file or your company file. In other words, most people that are taking a course QuickBooks Online have either a company file that they want to use this information in order to construct, or they're going to be using the QuickBooks Online file, the free test drive file, to help practice what is going on. You can use those two resources still. However, it'll have different data within it, and if you're talking about your own company file, then you don't really want to practice data input in a practice course because you don't want to mess up the data that's currently in the company file. So the objective now, if at all possible, would be to set up a new QuickBooks Online file that you can follow along with the data input that we're doing here and actually input that actual data input into your QuickBooks file. Again, if you can't do that, then you can follow along and you keep on inputting into the test drive file what you can, or follow along and see how that can apply to your own company file. How can you get the online QuickBooks Online, a free or a fresh online file? You could use the student version. So if you're going to a qualified university for QuickBooks, remember that you might want to look in that student version, which gives you basically that temporary version that you can use to practice in this course. You can ask your accountant who may be able to give you some type of discount, and that might be something that would be useful in order to go through the course. And you could look into that 30-day discount period, which Intuit, the owner of QuickBooks, almost always offers some type of 30-day discount period, if not a free 30 days, and then look into finishing the second half of the course within that 30-day time frame so that you can get the most out of it. Here we are in our Get Great Guitars file. So once again, this is a fresh file, a new file. We set this up in the section 1. So if you have questions on the purchasing process and going through the actual initial setup of the QuickBooks Online, you can go back to the section 1 and take a look at that. We have nothing basically in this file. This is not the free test drive file. This is going to be a new file that we have just set up. We're calling it Get Great Guitars. When you set up the new file within QuickBooks Online, you need a very minimal amount of information to basically set up the file. Then it's pretty much good to go at that point in time. However, you're going to want to go through the preferences, and that's where we're going to pick up at this point in time. We're going to look at the preferences, and then we're going to move forward with this Get Great Guitars fresh QuickBooks Online file and enter our data of 2 months worth of data input, do the bank reconciliations, and go through that full process. And the setting up process is really the part that most people don't have familiarity with, and it's a bit more complex component because the setup process is what makes it easier than to do the data input process. Many people, when they go use QuickBooks, they jump right into the data input, which is great, but the setup process has already been there, so they never really see how it all ties together because they didn't go through the setup process, and therefore although they do the data input, they may not really understand what's going on. So what we're going to start off with, we've got our new fresh QuickBooks Online file. We'll just take a look at the preferences. The preferences you can find in the cog up here. So we're going to go to the cog to the upper right, and we want to look at the company preferences. So within your company, you can go to Account and Setting, and that'll give us our preferences window with the tab on the left-hand side, or the tabs on the left-hand side, and the information on the right side. Now I'm going to close this back out. Do that one more time. You can go to the cog and you can go to the account and settings. Note also you have your little icon logo up here. So if you clicked on the icon logo, that's going to be something that's in your company preferences as well. So if you clicked on that, you'd actually get to the same point, and that might be a little bit easier to do. But either way, it'll get you here. So we're going to have our information. We're going to go through basically half of these tabs on the left this time. We'll continue with it next time. We're going to start with the company tab. So the company information is up top. Company information here. Now, anytime you want to adjust anything in these tabs, then you can hit the little pencil on the right. So we're going to hit the little pencil on the right, and then we can adjust it. Now, the first thing you have is your logo. So you can add a logo up top. And so the way you do that, obviously, is you save your logo, make a better logo than I have, hopefully. Although I made it myself, and I'm kind of proud of it, and really. But then you can add your logo here, and then you're going to pick up your person or your logo, and then you got that. So that's pretty straightforward. Get Great Guitars, that's what we set up the company name to be. So that's going to be our company name. That was set up in the setup process that we did in section 1. When we set up the new company file, we set up the name. That's basically the minimal amount of information that you need just for QuickBooks to get you up and running, get the file started. Then you have the EIN or SSN. That's the employer identification number or the social security number. Now, if you're a sole proprietor, you may not have an EIN yet if you don't have any employees, but even if you do not have employees, you probably want one, because if you're working with other individuals and they need to send you, say, a 1099 or something like that, they're going to need a number, and you don't really want to give your social security number typically. And that's going to be another major purpose of the EIN number. If you have employees, then you have to have one, of course. If you don't have employees, you probably still want to have one, just so you can give someone a number other than your social security number. So that would be the EIN. Now, if you have questions about that, you can go to the IRS website at irs.gov, irs.gov. You can look up EIN number, and you can go through the process. It's pretty straightforward type process. You can even apply online with it at this point in time. I'm going to go back to our QuickBooks settings. So I'm going to add an EIN number, and I'm just going to put a mock EIN number here. I'm going to say it usually looks something like this, 999999. So it looks something like that, and that would be generated in the forms that would be needing that information. I'm going to save that information, and then notice it grays back out. So I'm going to go to the second component now, the company type. I'm going to select the little pencil on the right to enter the company type. So then we have the tax form. So tax form, we're going to scroll down and pick the tax form. Now, if you're using QuickBooks Online to kind of feed into some of the other resources that Intuit has, such as tax software, such as like TurboTax and other types of tax software, you can set up, then the tax forms may be more important because you could basically try to link the QuickBooks Online to the tax software. Now, this isn't something that happens really cleanly in my experience so far. So at this point in time, then, I don't think the tax information, entering the tax information into QuickBooks is as relevant at this point in time, because most of the time you're going to be just generating the financial statements at the end of the year, which you will then use to enter into the tax return at the end of the year. So I'm going to pick the sole proprietor just to be aware of that. I'm going to be picking the sole proprietor at this point. And then the industry I'm going to say is going to be, I'm going to say miscellaneous store retailers. I'm going to say OK. Next, we'll be picking up the contact information. So I'm going to select the little pencil by the contact information. Now, the email will probably be populating for you because it'll be pulling that from the Intuit account that you had to set up in order to purchase QuickBooks Online. However, you can obviously change the email address. I'm going to say it's going to be the same as the company email. The phone number, we have the phone number here. Now, note that many of these fields are not required fields to basically get up and running with QuickBooks Online. In other words, if you're using QuickBooks Online to track your financial data only, basically, and then make your financial statements, help you with your financial statements in order to, say, prep your tax preparation, then you may not need some of this information. However, if you want this information to populate on some of your forms and documents that you may be giving to vendors and clients, then it would be a useful thing to have on those forms. So I'm just going to put in the mock phone number of the 555s here. And then we have the website. Not going to put a website here. So we're going to say save. Then we're going to have the address. So I'm going to select the item for the address. Again, this may populate for you because it might be pulling from your account on QuickBooks Online. But of course, then you can change this as well. This is a mock address. This is a home for sale, Beverly Hills, in 98 million here. And then we have so if you're in the market, customer-facing address is going to be the same as the company address, and the legal address, I'm going to say, is the same as the company address. Then I'm going to save that information, and the address note, again, that information is going to show up possibly on forms that you may be providing to vendors and customers. So then we have the communications with Intuit. If we select the link, we get the link here that says Intuit respects your privacy. To learn more, read the privacy statement. To unsubscribe from marketing communications, please check the appropriate box below. If you are not signed in to your Intuit account, you will have to enter information to the next page to allow us to identify your account. Please note that you may still receive business communications regarding your account, transactions, or inquiries, even if you have opted out of marketing communications. In other words, Intuit is going to give you marketing emails, which could be useful because they may be something that are part of Intuit, although it may have other things that you don't really want. So they may be, for example, asking you things that would go along with QuickBooks would be things like if you wanted to buy checks or something like that, or some other, supplies or things like that, or added services within QuickBooks, such as support services and, a higher level of support. And payroll is going to be a common type of thing that they'll be asking about. Now, these might be things that you want to know about because you may be interested in them at some point in time, but they also might just give you updates about the software as well. So I typically leave them on, even though, again, you're probably going to have some things that you may not need that they'll ask about from time to time. We do not share personal information with outside companies for their promotional use. Please do not email me. So you could say, hey, don't email me, please. Please do not phone me. Please do not email me. So again, you could just go ahead and turn those off if you so choose. I'm going to go to the next item. Again, Intuit respects your privacy. To learn more, you can read here. Please enter the following information to help us locate your customer records. So I'm going to close that out. I'm back in the communications with Intuit here, and now we were in the company tab. We're now going to go to the billings and subscriptions. So we are now in the billings and subscription tab. This is where you're going to have the company ID, the payment method information, and then you have the type of QuickBooks that you have. So QuickBooks Plus, this is the subscription. You can then change the subscription. It's going to be easier to upgrade than downgrade. So if you needed to upgrade, you can go here. You do have the downgraded of your plan as well. Again, if you have options that you use in the upgrade, then downgrading might be more difficult. So that's why I would basically recommend QuickBooks Plus. If you're using inventory, maybe you can do something less than that if you're not using inventory, but that's generally the case. And then if you need more of the features, you may want to start there and then basically upgrade as you need the more features. So then you have the payment history, cancel subscription if you want. So this is where you'd want to go if you're just using this for the 30-day time period, and you would like to cancel at the end of that 30-day, then you want to make sure that you get back here before that point. And then you could switch to the annual billing, which is typically going to be a cheaper format if you have the annual billing. QuickBooks self-service payroll. Pay employees with free direct deposit. So this is going to be a payroll option. Remember that payroll within QuickBooks is going to be an added feature typically. So you have to pay more if you want to do payroll within QuickBooks. We'll talk more about payroll later. We'll give more examples of payroll, but we're not going to get into payroll with this problem because we don't want to be adding more features, more cost to getting through and using this particular problem. So we'll talk more about payroll at the end of it. QuickBooks Live full service bookkeeping. A dedicated team bookkeeper who handle your QuickBooks bookkeeping for you. Keeps your books accurate and up to date. Monitor the health of your business by reviewing reports and gets ready for tax time with customized year-end reviews. So you can look into that if that's something you're interested in. We're not going to be doing that here. We're going to be entering the data into QuickBooks Online. QuickBooks Live bookkeeping setup. A bookkeeper gets to know your business and gives you a customized QuickBooks setup. So if you're concerned with the setup process rather than a full-time bookkeeper helping you all the time, possibly you're thinking about maybe if I got the thing set up, I can use help with that and then push forward from that point. So you could look into that service as well. If you're working with a tax professional, then I would recommend you might want to go to the tax professional first if you have that option. It might be a little bit more expensive to do that within the setup process or not. But if you do that with a tax professional, they can basically set it up and customize it to make sure that they have what they need in that format with the year-end information. So you got to kind of balance this stuff out, these added services. Do you want to have it within QuickBooks? Or if you have a tax professional or some kind of accounting or CPA firm that's helping you with tax preparation and possibly bookkeeping at year-end, and you have an option to work with them, it might be another way to go. So you want to keep those two things in mind. So this one's going to get help setting up the features you'll use most, learn best practices for creating custom reports, invoicing, and more, receive expert answers to your bookkeeping questions. Then we have the QuickBooks Online payments. Accept payments online or in person. Customers can pay by credit, debit card, Apple Pay, or bank transfer. Your books are reconciled automatically. And then we have the check and supplies. Get the products you need to help run business easily and effectively. Choose from popular check styles. So it's a common kind of, again, add-on type of feature or things that's going to complement QuickBooks, which is to add the checks, because if you print the checks out of QuickBooks, then you still need the pre-copied checks that you're going to be putting into the printer and then printing them within QuickBooks. Now, we will discuss how that works when we enter the checks, but we're not going to be actually printing the checks because we're going to be working within the online system here. But we'll talk about the different options you have when you're thinking about checks and how to enter the data into the system and how you might be working with checks.